On the news, ex-EFCC Chairman Bauer alleges ghost importing over invoicing in new book in a major fuel subsidy scandal. INEC confirms 16 parties for Niger State governorship election, says campaigns begin June 11. Niger State Governor Umar Bago suspends traditional salah celebrations to honor flood victims. It's a pleasure to have you join News Now on TV 360 Nigeria. I am Victoria Konde. Now, a former chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdul Rashid Bauer, has alleged a staggering scale of corrupt practices used to siphon public funds under the guise of fuel subsidy payments. Bauer reviewed this in his book titled The Shadow of Loot and Losses, Uncovering Nigeria's Petroleum Subsidy Fraud. The statement said the book exposes Nigeria's multi-trillion naira fuel subsidy scandal, unraveling the inner workings of one of the country's most pervasive financial crimes. Bauer, drawing from his first-hand experience as a key investigator on the EFCC special team that probed the 2012 subsidy fraud, reveals the complexity and audacity of the corrupt schemes used. According to the statement, the former head of the anti-graft agency chronicled how billions of naira were embezzled through ghost importing and over-invoicing as companies submitted claims for fuel that was never imported or inflated shipment volumes to receive excessive subsidy payouts. Now, the governor of Niger State, Umar Bago, has suspended all traditional salah events, including the Awan Bariki, Dobar, and other public gatherings, in a statement issued by the secretary to the state government, Abubakar Osman, on Wednesday. The directive comes in the wake of a devastating flood that struck Mokwa, leaving numerous families displaced and mourning. Bago extended heartfelt condolences to the affected communities and urged citizens to use the sacred occasion of Eid to offer prayers for the departed, engage in acts of charity, and show solidarity with those in distress. The Doba, typically a vibrant highlight of the Salah celebration, marked by horseback parades and cultural pageantry, will not be held this year. Its cancellation underscores the administration's emphasis on humanitarian priorities over ceremonial traditions. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 elections, Peter Obi, has donated 20 million naira to victims of flooding in the Mokwa local government area of Niger State. Obi made the donation in Mina, the state capital of Niger, during a visit to sympathize with the state government over the disaster that claimed many lives and rendered many homeless. It was received by Yakubu Garba, the deputy governor of the state, on behalf of Umar Bago, the governor. According to journalists, Obi prayed for the repose of the souls of the victims and for God to grant their families the fortitude to bear the loss.
This disaster is a national catastrophe that happened not only to Niger State but Nigeria. Niger State alone cannot handle this issue. We need both international and national assistance for us to address the immediate needs of this episode. And going forward, to avoid the reoccurrence, it is not only in that area alone. Your Excellency and your team, we thank you for coming. God will take care of you wherever you go. We appreciate all what you have been doing and your contribution, not only to Niger State, but to the country. Our own son of the soil, Senator Sabi, we thank him. He's always identified with us.
What affects any state in Nigeria affects the entire country. And we should always come together as a family, especially when it involves losing lives, families being affected, like it's happened here. There's nobody who can say there will never be flood. There will be. It's how we manage it. And if we're able to utilize our facility land effectively by ensuring that what brings the reoccurring is prevented, working in different sites and everything, we can lessen the effect.
Moko as a community is our closest neighbor because we are from Kainji. And by the time whatever happened to Kainji happens to Mokwa, and whatever happens to Mokwa happens to Kainji. So we have no any other thing than to pray for them and to wish them well. In regard to the aspect of the items we brought, it is just a widow's mind because we felt as a temporary measure to just help them cushion the effect of this destabilization they have. It's just those little amount of things we brought. We just brought 300 bags of 50 kg of rice, and 150 bags of maize, and 150 bags of millet. That's 1 trailer load of food items to really help them cushion the effect till when the major intervention from the federal government will come.
The devastating flood disaster in Mokwa, Niger State, has continued to claim lives, leaving over 200 people dead, hundreds still missing, and thousands displaced. The incident mirrors previous flood disasters in parts of Nigeria, including Borno State, where at least 150 people died in 2024 following the Alao Dam collapse. As emergency agency intensify rescue and relief efforts, experts are calling for urgent infrastructural reforms and sustainable climate action to prevent future disasters. TV360's correspondent Comfort Samuel completes the report.
It has been described as the worst flooding to hit the area in 60 years. The torrent swept through the communities of Tifi-Maza and Angwang Hausawa, right in the heart of Mokwa town, submerging homes and washing away entire families. The death toll has continued to mount over 200 at the last count, and over 2,000 houses have been washed away in the disaster, leaving thousands now homeless. Authorities and experts attribute the flood to climate-induced rainfall, blocked waterways, and uncontrolled urban development, warning that over 1,200 communities across 176 local governments remain at high-risk flood zones.
Water temperature for every 1 degree centigrade increase in temperature, it carries about 7 times the volume in water. So what has happened is that what would have been a normal flow becomes a flood. What would have been a flood becomes a torrent. And as you'll observe, even in the south here, the temperatures have been extreme. And it affects the water temperature too. So what it does is that it carries a lot of water up north. That is why you have been having a lot of heavy rainfall, a lot of flooding taking place in most parts of the north. So it is a direct derivative of climate change. The second thing is that I want to use the word the water infrastructure. The water courses they build, the levees they build, the dams they build are not properly built. So when they encounter this massive surge, they cannot stand.
The organization told us very, very clearly that if we continue the massive pollution of the atmosphere that we've been doing, that is causing global warming, we would have climate change. And one of the major manifestations of climate change is exactly this: much heavier rainfall. When you have 3 weeks or sometimes even 4 weeks rain, in some cases 3 months rain falling in one day, it's going to overwhelm whatever system is in place. Even the natural systems will be overwhelmed.
Experts are warning that Nigeria's flooding problem can no longer be treated as a seasonal event, but a national emergency requiring infrastructure reform, better planning, and a firm stance on environmental regulations. In response to the disaster, President Bola Tinubu dispatched a high-level delegation to assess the situation and directed the Federal Ministry of Works to repair a major breach destroyed by the flood.
A lot of the houses, a lot of the structures built across the reserved parts may need to be pulled down. Number three, if there are dense settlements, something should be done to disperse them so that the soil itself can be loosened and it can help to absorb some of the excess water.
The flood water has since receded, but the search for the missing is continuing as more bones are being recovered from the debris. The Moko tragedy is a stark reminder of what happens when nature meets human neglect, and with climate change accelerating and infrastructure gaps widening, experts warn that unless urgent measures are taken, Nigeria's annual flood could become more deadly. Comfort Samuel, TV 360 News, Lagos.
Now let's go back to the story on the fuel subsidy scandal revealed by the former EFCC boss, Bawa. Now joining us to discuss this further is oil and gas expert Ayodele Oni. Thank you very much for your time. Now, sir, are you in any way surprised by the revelation made by the former EFCC chairman, Bawa, in a publication? Like, what's your reaction to this?
There's nothing strange. There's nothing surprising. I mean, it's recall that a number of people went through prosecution, criminal prosecution, because of the fuel subsidy corruption. So I think that one, it's not said anything new as far as I'm concerned, and I'll say a bit more. You cannot divorce politics from oil and gas, and you naturally cannot divorce corruption from politics, generally speaking. So if you cannot divorce corruption from politics and you cannot divorce politics from oil and gas, it then suggests that, or you can extrapolate that you cannot divorce corruption from oil and gas. You just need to have stringent rules and you need to enforce those rules. If rules are not enforced fairly and universally, and people get away, this is sort of things you get. So I'm not surprised. I mean, we did hear all of these things, ghost importing, over-invoicing, and all of that, round-tripping, from the banking sector to oil and gas. You find corruption as long as, or from the financial sector, rather, to oil and gas. You find corruption as long as you don't have stringent rules. So it's not said anything new, strange, or surprising as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, all right. Now, sir, with the fuel subsidy now being removed, how can Nigeria ensure that these loopholes, how can the Nigerian government, rather, ensure that these loopholes do not reemerge in other firms, especially with ongoing petrol imports and market deregulation?
Okay, my view has always been, there's no point fighting corruption directly. You just incentivize corruption or you make it unattractive. Let me give you an instance. There was a lot of corruption when you had only Nitel. I mean, I was born in the 1980s, so I grew up to know about Nitel and that people would queue at neighbors' homes to make calls. But with GSM, Nitel, even MTEL couldn't survive. Even being with a national carrier, having a national carrier license, it couldn't survive. So once you have competition, once you privatize, once you remove stuff like subsidy, I mean, and that's always debated because people would say that even in more advanced countries, there's subsidy, but what are you subsidizing? Are you subsidizing production? Are you subsidizing consumption, right? So I think that the president did score high by removing subsidy. Of course, it did come with its pains, which in the mid to long term should vanish, particularly when you can't speak about oil and gas also without looking at the broader economy, right? So as long as the economy continues to improve and people have jobs, it wouldn't matter that subsidy was removed. If you have electricity 24/7 and you don't have to buy fuel in your generator every day, you have multiple means of transportation, you don't have to put fuel in your car every day, you go on the rail, cable cars, and all of that. And we are refining sufficient quantities. You find out that the hue and cry around fuel subsidy won't go away. Now, to ensure that corruption doesn't continue, you don't fight it, like I say. You just create an environment where there's a better alternative, particularly where it's private sector driven and there isn't any government interface or civil service interface. So with removal of subsidy, I mean, you bring in your own fuel or you find, and whichever is higher quality, more competitive in pricing, gets bought. Yes, I know the PIA does state that at some point we'll have backward integration such that people will stop importing as long as we can sufficiently refine, So if we sufficiently refine, we have a number of refineries. Some can only do up to NAFTA and cannot do PMS. So those that do NAFTA determine what they want to do with it, and then those who can do PMS are able to sell to the local market. When we have surplus, then they can export. So I don't really see how it'd be nearly as corrupt as it was before. So the president has done something that does make sense around this subsidy removal. Like I said initially, you don't fight corruption directly. You just create options that make it worthless being corrupt, right? E.g., removing that subsidy. E.g., creating private sector options, alternatives that are even better than what you currently have that is maybe government-driven.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, oil and gas expert Ayodele Oniwo. What has invent or fold? Thank you very much for sharing your insights on the news. Now moving on, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has called for the fencing of Nigeria's borders as a strategic move to combat terrorism and cross-border crime. Speaking at a security conference in Abuja, General Musa stressed that effective border management is crucial in the fight against insecurity. He cited examples of countries like Pakistan and Saudi Arabia that achieved relative peace after fencing their borders with Afghanistan and Iraq respectively. He urged Nigeria to consider similar action, especially given its long and porous borders with countries like Niger, Republic, Cameroon and Chad. General Musa also highlighted the need for a comprehensive national database that includes both citizens and foreigners, noting that such systems have been effective in tracking and apprehending criminals in other parts of the world.
We must learn to love our country. It's only in Nigeria, sometimes you hear when something happens, Nigeria is bad, Nigeria is terrible, we're this, we're that. Go to other countries and see what happens. Where everybody protects its sovereignty, we to go ahead. So these are aspects that we should look at. I look at the aspects of good governance, which is critical, dividends of democracy, local government autonomy. These are aspects that will help in securing our country. Because if you have a state with 20 local governments and you have 20 local government chairmen working, insecurity is localized. They would individually be able to deal with the security situation within their local government before it comes to the collective as a state. These are aspects that we have to look at. Do we have a comprehensive database as Nigerians? We need a census that will capture every Nigerian in the world, not only in Nigeria. If you go abroad and you do the crime, you will easily be caught. Why? There's a database to fall back on. If they get your picture or your fingerprint or your signature or anything about you, you could be traced. That makes it a lot easier. Do we have that now? Border management is very critical. I've had countries, because of the level of insecurity they had to fence their borders. I know sometimes when you mention, people say, no, it's impossible. Pakistan fenced 1,350 kilometer border with Afghanistan. That was the only time they had peace. Saudi Arabia and Iraq, 1,400 kilometers fenced completely. Can we start thinking of fencing our borders? We have 1,500 kilometers with Niger Republic, 1,900 kilometers with Cameroon. Chad is there. All over us, surrounded by Francophone countries, and the Sahel is heating up. Gentlemen, if we don't do anything, when the Sahel falls, it is Nigeria that everybody is interested in. Because they believe Nigeria is huge, Nigeria is big, Nigeria is rich. And that is what we should start thinking about. How do we secure fully and take control of our borders?
On to electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has released the final list of candidates for the 2025 Anambra State governorship election, with 16 political parties confirmed to participate. The Commission confirmed that the African Action Congress (AAC) and the National Rescue Movement are fielding female governorship candidates, while 6 others have nominated female running mates. This was contained in a statement issued on Wednesday by Sam Olumekun, the INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman of the Information and Voter Education Committee. INEC also disclosed that no persons with disabilities were nominated and candidates' ages range from 36 to 71 years. Campaigns officially commenced on June 11 and will run until midnight on November 6 ahead of the elections scheduled for November 8. We'll take a short break here. Still to come on News Now, United Nations elects DR Congo, Liberia, and 3 others to Security Council. Stay with us for details. Welcome back. Now let's take you through our main stories. A former chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdulrasheed Bawa, has alleged a staggering scale of corrupt practices used to siphon public funds under the guise of fuel subsidy payments. Bawa reviewed this in his book titled The Shadow of Loot and Losses, Uncovering Nigeria's Petroleum Subsidy Fraud. The statement said the book exposes Nigeria's multi-trillion naira fuel subsidy scandal, unraveling the inner workings of one of the country's most pervasive financial crimes. We also told you that the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has released the final list of candidates for the 2025 Anambra State governorship election, with 16 political parties confirmed to participate. INEC confirmed that the African Action Congress and the National Rescue Movement have fielded female governorship candidates, while 6 others have nominated female running mates. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletins, or for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV and AVO TV, or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store, Huawei App Gallery, and Apple Store. On Facebook, we are at TV360 Online. It's now time for business news, and Joy Uchejim is on standby. What's the latest, Joy?
Thank you, Victoria, and welcome to Business News. Now, the Nigerian Communications Commission has directed deposit money banks to start deducting charges for unstructured supplementary service data transactions directly from users' mobile airtime. According to an email from the United Bank for Africa to customers, the charges will no longer be deducted from customers' accounts. UBA said the directive takes effect from Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. The latest directive may be another move by the Commission to address the historical USSD payments conflict between mobile network operators and commercial banks. In December 2024, the Central Bank of Nigeria and the NCC directed mobile network operators and DNBs to resolve the long-standing 250 billion naira USSD debt. We'll now take a short break and return with stock market reports. Welcome back. Now, the midweek momentum lifted the Nigerian equities market into the green as trading wrapped up on a high note. On the third trading day of the week, the NGS edged up by 0.32%, bringing the total market cap to a robust 71.13 trillion naira. Now, the trading floor was abuzz with activity as 128 listed equities exchanged hands. Bulls had the upper hand with 32 stocks gaining ground, while 21 slipped. Owanda sold the spotlight, surging by 10% to close at 51 naira 70 kobo, followed by hot on his heels was Union Homes Real Estate Investment. And now at the end of today's stock market exchange, 13,682 deals saw a staggering 601.5 million shares change hands, translating to a market turnover of over 15.94 billion naira. Now, beyond local shores, optimism swept across Europe. The continent's markets closed higher after Germany's greenlit a massive £46 billion corporate tax relief package. The UK's FTSE and Japan's Nikkei joined the rally, closing in the green, while across the Atlantic, the US Dow Jones dipped into negative territory. Meanwhile, in the currency space, exchange rates remain dynamic. As of today, the US dollar trades at 1,565 naira. On the black market, the British pound at 2,015 naira and the euro at 1,017 naira, each reflecting the continuing volatility in the forex market. That's all business and stock market updates. Back to you, Victoria, for the rest of the news.
Thank you very much, Joy, for that update. Now, on the global scene, the United Nations General Assembly has been elected 5 new non-permanent members of the UN Security Council. Bahrain, Colombia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo and Liberia were selected to serve as non-permanent members of the UN Security Council with 2-year terms beginning in January 2026. The incoming members will succeed Algeria, the Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, and Slovenia, whose terms end in December 2025. They will serve through the end of 2027 on the UN body responsible for formatting international peace and security. Finally, on sports, the Nigerian government has declared that it would honor Kano's fallen heroes and families of victims of the tragic road accident involving members of the state's contingent returning from the 2024 National Sports Festival. The pledge was made when a high-level delegation from the National Sports Commission paid a condolence visit to the government and people of Kano State. Recognizing the devastating impact of the tragedy, the NSC revealed plans to establish a relief and welfare support package for bereaved families, among other arrangements. The NSC also reiterated its earlier commitment to fast-track stricter national safety protocol for sporting contingents. And that wraps up our bulletin on News Now. Many thanks for joining us. See you next time.